Hello, my name is Tom, and today we're going to talk about Jeroen Campanella, a flat earther who accidentally disproved his entire worldview. Now, conspiracy theories are a lot of fun. Some of them will get you banned if you even mention them, others are more funny than anything, but one that I've always really loved is this idea that the Earth is flat. It's unique in the way that the people who believe in it didn't want to come up with some new conspiracy theory. Instead, they've decided to disregard a few thousand years of scientific discovery by dusting off this archaic understanding of how the world used to be. And now, in the modern age, all of these guys also have an internet connection, meaning they can get online whenever they want and spread their beliefs as much as possible, and also meet like-minded people, which has led to these guys organizing into the Flat Earth movement. This specific group of people are pretty similar to incels in the way that they peaked in mainstream popularity around the late 2010s, and ever since then, hearing about them kind of evokes the same feeling as hearing about a like a "here comes dat boy" joke. It's partially due to the fact that they've been covered by every YouTuber under the sun at this point, the fact that mocking flat earthers has been very played out on Reddit, because these guys are probably the easiest dunk imaginable. Unfortunately, 8 or 9 times out of 10, the people trying to debunk flat earthers are not really trying to understand them. It's more so just like, oh my god, I get to have an easy dunk on this guy that's obviously wrong. Look at how crazy this one guy is. Like, yeah, we know, we heard you for the 200th time. But if you can get over the oversaturation, there are still a lot of funny little gems to be found within the flat earth community to this very day. Digging through the extensive history of their beliefs, the various organizations they founded to spread them, and their psychology is a massive rabbit hole that becomes very easy to get lost in. So today, we're going to go down that rabbit hole to better understand these guys and to talk about the most recent dunk that happened to one of these individuals, Jeroen. Jeroen? What kind of name is that? Now, the most important question when it comes to flat earth is how and why there are massive groups of people that believe the earth is flat, other than, you know, lead being in tap water and inbreeding, of course, which could be good explanations. I don't know. It seems to be the case that for a few thousand years, we all had a pretty common consensus that the earth was round, but in the past 10 to 20 years, these guys have really popped up on the internet. So why is that? Why is it the case that there are people scarily high up in the food chain, like Kyrie Irving, a professional basketball player who subscribed to this system of beliefs? There are business owners, there are CEOs, there are competent people who work in the electronics field who all believe that the earth is flat. And simultaneously, they also believe that at the edge of the earth at Antarctica is an ice wall where there's some devious things happening.
Recently, a poll showed that only 84% of Americans agree with the statement, "I have always believed the world is round." 84%. And if you're 18 to 24, that's more like 66%, which is like dangerously close to half.
Well, conveniently for us, Johnny Harris has a video on this exact question that people were asking in the midst of flat earth having a bit of a resurgence. You see, flat earthers as we know them are actually a relatively new thing, at least in the past couple hundred of years. Even in medieval times, pretty much everyone knew that the earth was a globe by then. In the Dark Ages, the time after the Roman Empire, when humanity was, at a very big risk, people still believed that the earth was round. When Christopher Columbus was sailing around the world, there was a universal consensus, even from the Catholic Church themselves, that the earth was indeed round. You see, in the 1800s, there was this guy named Parallax. It's a very strange name. It's almost like this is like a forum username, like the moderator of the Too Good for Poop subreddit, Parallax, was caught messaging cats on catbook.com. Like that. It's a cool name, I admit. I gotta agree with Johnny Harris here.
Like, if I were a DJ, I would totally go with like
Parallax. But Parallax decided to do an extremely simple experiment with a river, where he basically said, if I look at this very long river, this 6-mile long river, through a telescope, I should be seeing a curve. But as it turns out, he did not see a curve, therefore, he concluded the earth must be flat. And somehow this explanation was extremely convincing to a lot of people. And frankly, to an extent, this is understandable because scientific literacy in the 1800s wasn't as great as it is now. The standardized education system was not as good as it is now, although even now it probably has some serious issues. And so this very simple explanation was appealing to a lot of people who didn't want to have to read about this stuff and had just kind of been told their entire lives, oh, the earth is round. Why is it round? I don't know, ask a scientist. Why would I trust a scientist when we've got this cool guy named Parallax?
As scientific methods become more sophisticated, they become harder for you and me to understand. Parallax and his canal experiments are a reaction to all of this. They are a call for a simplification of scientific methods.
But after this small movement guided by Parallax in the 1800s, the flat earth movement did die down for quite a while until the age of the internet. And it honestly makes sense why, for a few reasons. First of all, the internet has provided a haven for a lot of people who are societal outcasts to come together and form their own communities online, which are essentially echo chambers where they can avoid being challenged challenged. I mean, this happens in politics, it happens with conspiracy theories. Why would it not happen with flat Earth? And really, simplification of complicated information is really the entire mission objective when it comes to the internet at large. Instead of learning trigonometry or the scientific process, which, to be honest, are both kind of boring to me, people have basically simplified it into these Facebook-type images that are easy to understand and shareable, almost like it's a meme. And at the end of the day, this entire philosophy is based on a general distrust of science, and instead they believe that you can only truly take in from the world what you can see with your own two eyes. They throw out thousands of years of research because they just don't trust the scientific consensus. They think these people are either idiots or potentially conspiring together to push an agenda, maybe both, and it's a very fascinating worldview. And as the internet became popular and more people got online, it even gave way to different in real life conventions. And as with any community, these people eventually decided, hey, maybe we should get off the internet and go meet in real life. And that led to the Flat Earth International Conference, a gathering of the greatest minds in the flat Earth community to come together to celebrate their beliefs and to challenge the mainstream consensus on the Earth being round.
And the Earth is
flat.
The Earth is flat.
My reality, my senses tell me that the Earth is flat and stationary.
The amount of people at this convention and the amount of interviews that were conducted is pretty mind-boggling. It's a very weird thing to behold. And obviously, a lot of these people are very eccentric characters. And to be honest, despite the fact that what they believe is so insane, ultimately, I do think that they're relatively harmless and more funny than anything. And they end up producing some pretty good content. For example, this one lady who decided to make a sick flat Earth epic poem to share with the world, and it got her on the news. They've also taken their beliefs even further than that through their art, with this one guy in particular named Odd TV creating epic rap disses on all of the globetards.
Like many modern movements, this one has grown in large part out of the internet, with rappers like Odd TV evangelizing to hundreds of thousands of subscribers.
No more living on a cartoon ball.
And as you would probably expect, the community of Flat Earth goes much deeper than this. And because of how complicated the movement has become over the years, there are also several types of Flat Earthers. For example, some of them believe that science is a lie because there are horrors in the Arctic Circle that those who are really in charge are trying to hide. They basically believe that there is this ice wall fortress at the end of the Earth where there are secret things going on that the government doesn't want us to know about. And from there, they're also projecting a lot of the lies about the supposed round Earth. Then you also have guys who think it's less insidious. They think that science simply got it wrong, and they've developed new methods to test the truth, doing their own experiments to prove their worldview. And on top of that, obviously there is a lot of crossover between flat Earth and other conspiracy theories, like about the Jews and stuff like that. Here in this news broadcast, we can even see this man giving what seems to be some kind of rallying cry, a rallying speech to the flat earthers to say, hey, we are here and we must be seen.
For the serious students here at the conference,
this has got to a point now where it's becoming real.
It all comes down to proof.
Now, the 2018 Flat Earth Convention in UK was also an absolute treasure trove of diversity of belief in the best way possible. Sure, the majority of attendees do believe that the Earth is in fact a round disc, but then there are also rebels within the movement who insist that maybe the Earth is not a round disc, maybe it's more of a diamond shape, sort of a Minecraft type thing. And while a lot of them don't believe in the existence of outer space or that humans have ever ventured there, which also gets into another conspiracy theory crossover because a lot of people believe that the moon landing in 1969 was faked by the United States government and we've actually never been to the moon. Some believe that there is no moon, but that's a whole other rabbit hole in and of itself. These guys do have a lot of differing views on the broader universe, and it's very thought-provoking. Take, for example, Robbie Davidson, the organizer of the Flat Earth International Conferences. You see, according to him, Earth is a stationary plane under a dome sprinkled with the sun, moon, and stars. It's like that show Under the Dome, the very bad show, if you've ever seen that. It's like that. But on the other hand, you have the Flat Earth Society, and they promote the idea that the Earth is actually essentially a frisbee of land with a bunch of stuff on top of it, and that it is flying through space like someone just chucked it. And this has led to a lot of different conflicts between these guys. Like Robbie, for example, he considers this notion ridiculous. Okay, this is just too far. But if you can believe it, there's also other theories, because the majority of flat earthers believe the Earth just stops at some point and kind of drops off into space, but that's not what everybody thinks. The filmmakers of Behind the Curve, which is a documentary about flat earthers, attended one conference where some folks insisted that the Earth is actually an infinite plane. It's like an infinitely generating Minecraft world where there are potentially a bunch of hidden bonus continents beyond Antarctica's ice wall. And while that in and of itself is a very unique perspective, the idea of the ice wall, like I've mentioned before, is not an idle theory. Most flat earthers do in fact believe that NASA and government agencies are involved in a conspiracy to keep this whole globe-tard spherical charade going to hide different things. And according to the most popular version of the theory, the reason why NASA won't actually go into space, if space even exists, is that they're currently busy hiding, cloaking, and simultaneously guarding the ice wall. Now, obviously from that, the question becomes, what about all of the scientific proof in quotation marks, that the Earth is round? What about all of that? Well, you see, they just think that all of that is fake. For example, you know those satellite images you've seen of the Earth being round? That's simply fake. It's photoshopped. The oceans change color too often. The continents seem to play musical chairs. So clearly Photoshop is to blame. And obviously this is a very easy dunk to get on them to kind of reduce their worldview to that, but it does get a lot more interesting than that, all right? What's truly fascinating about flat earthers is the complexity of the beliefs and the various different factions that exist within it. Every single day, one of these guys basically pulls a new conspiracy theory or belief system out of their ass. Research done by outside observations essentially has grouped these guys into 3 distinct factions or trains of thought within the movement. And obviously I've discussed a lot of beliefs, so there's a lot of differing ideas on this from individuals, but there are 3 distinct factions essentially. Many of them do share several of these beliefs while rejecting others, like they'll kind of fit into 2 camps well, but then the 3rd camp they won't agree with. But for the sake of simplicity, I'm going to focus into 3 specific categories. So let's break it down. We'll start with the Faithful Crusaders. For this group, flat Earth isn't just a belief, it's actually a holy war against atheism. And hey, I don't really like Reddit atheists, so maybe I'm on their side. You see, they argue that science is a tool atheists use to undermine Christianity. Evolution? Fake. The Big Bang? All a lie. Round Earth? Don't even get me started there. Instead, they use a very literal interpretation of scripture, like how in the Bible there is the mention of the 4 corners of the earth. I mean, if they say the 4 corners of the earth, obviously a circular earth does not have corners, right? A round earth doesn't have corners, and obviously neither would a flat disc frisbee shaped earth, but you know, we're moving on. I mean, why let geometry ruin a perfectly divine narrative? But some of these guys argue that the 4 corners are proof that Earth is a literal 2D quadrilateral or even a 3D tetrahedron. Never mind that none of these shapes really align with the flat Earth models they actually promote, but once again, there's a lot of differing thoughts, so I don't want to pin them down too much here. Now we've got the classic theorists, and this is really the conspiracy crowd. You see, these guys believe that the supposed lie that the Earth is round is really just the tip of the iceberg. According to them, a secret cabal of elites suppresses knowledge to maintain control over the masses. They'll kind of differ within there about what those elites are. You know, sometimes it's the Elon types, sometimes it's the rabbi types, depending on who you ask. But the idea rests on this notion that if they, whoever they are, can convince you that the Earth is round, they can make you believe anything. You want to keep people suppressed and keep them in line and keep them from discovering the truth? Well, just lie about the fundamental nature of their home rock, their home planet. Although I think the term planet would probably be controversial to them, so I'll refrain from using that word. This shadowy group supposedly has nothing better to do than micromanage public perception of Earth's shape to hide things that are lower down on the iceberg. You see, for this faction, flat Earth isn't just a belief, it's a manifesto. Exposing the truth about Earth's flatness is seen as a way to liberate humanity from intellectual oppression and get to the truth of the matter. And our last group is going to be the guys who like to do it themselves, the DIY scientists. This group simply does not believe anything they cannot see, touch, or measure themselves with their own technology, which is kind of what I briefly discussed with our boy Parallax from the 1800s. They completely dismiss all book knowledge, which is a term they use. They say that it's suspect, okay? It's weird. They prefer to rely on their own personal observations. If the ground looks flat to them, it must be flat. Who needs pesky things like math or science when you've got pure vibes? You see, the DIY scientists frame their arguments as experimental, and they pride themselves on rejecting authority. They'll happily launch weather balloons, they'll make makeshift experiments, and they'll even use lasers, okay? They'll use actual lasers to try and prove that the Earth is flat.
When it comes to science, there's things you can test right now, right? Fire burns, water's wet, drop something, falls to the ground, that appears to be gravity. Those are things you can test.
But here's the thing about that. Even within the flat Earth community, paranoia runs very deep. In Behind the Curve, for example, attendees were warned not to trust anyone, okay? You gotta watch your back. As figures like Math Powerland, and yes, that is his real name. His name is Math Powerland, okay? He claimed that other prominent flat earthers were potentially working for the CIA so that they could infiltrate the community, or perhaps also working for the Warner Brothers, which is, I mean, I think that's pretty cool. Hey, Warner Brothers, others, if you're watching my video, I think a Batman villain related somehow to Flat Earth, maybe the Flat Earther would be cool, and Batman can come in with math and science and try to prove to him that the Earth is actually round. Okay, I think that'd be a great move. So if any WB execs are watching this, the next DC animated movie I think has to be in line with that. Just saying. Now, at the 2017 Flat Earth conference, several speakers accused others of being shills sent by some deep state counterintelligence program to make the movement look bad, right? It's the same idea that a lot of guys will have with like, okay, right-wing movements are being infiltrated by the government, by the FBI, by the CIA to try and make us look bad, to astroturf bad actors, to push us into doing something crazy so they can arrest us, right? It's that same kind of idea of entrapment. But the drama did not stop there. At the very same conference, a plan to create a non-profit sparked an outburst from an audience member. A 501c3, she exclaimed, aghast. That is a Luciferian contract. You see, she believes that these contracts are demonic, that a charity is inherently a demonic entity, and obviously a lot of these guys are very anti-government. Some of them are like libertarians, some of them are sovereign citizens. Once again, there's just a lot of good overlap going on from a lot of different groups in the Flat Earth community, and I find them very fascinating. But with that, any hope of a bureaucratic unity in Flat Earth land really kind of went out the window because they don't trust institutions. Even the limited organization and bureaucracy within the Flat Earth community is also very suspect, as Eric Dubé, who is the creator of the 200 Proofs Earth is Not a Spinning Ball video, which is a 2-hour-long video with 5,700 views. Eric once accused others in the community of being controlled opposition shills. You see, he's trying to expose the truth. Meanwhile, other people who are in the community are on one hand trying to make money from the movement, basically, right? But on the other hand, they're also trying to make the movement look bad to outsiders. It's kind of the same opinion that a lot of people who are in the deep conspiracy world have about Alex Jones, where Alex Jones obviously pushes a lot of conspiracy theories, but he acts very zany. He's very entertaining on camera. So a lot of those guys believe that Alex Jones is actually a paid government operative. And this is a consistent belief within a lot of conspiracy communities that the most popular guy in any movement, or some of the most popular people in any movement, if they get a lot of media attention, they must therefore be a shill who is some kind of government agent. This video is sponsored by GamerSupps, the best energy drink that money can buy. It tastes great. It's got a lot of fun and cool and zany and awesome flavors. I personally have been drinking a lot of Crusaderade lately. This is Swagger Souls' flavor. And I've also been drinking this one called Kissy Kissy Passion, which, I'm gonna be honest, I don't really like what's on it, but it does taste good, so I drink it. It's also a lot cheaper, a lot more affordable than other energy drinks, and YouTubers are selling it, so what could possibly go wrong? So go to gamersupps.gg/Tom to get 10% off your order today, and a special thanks to GamerSupps for sponsoring my videos where I talk about weird shit and act embarrassing. All right, now back to the video. And with all that being said, we've kind of gone through the history of the Flat Earth movement, and that brings us to the real subject of today's video and the guy that I want to focus on because of what just happened with him, and his name is Jaron. You see, Jaron, Jay, whatever, he really falls into the category of DIY scientists that I talked about before, people who do their own experiments. But the problem with these DIY scientists, and the reason why this particular group of people is losing some steam, is that more often than not, they'll accidentally prove themselves to be very wrong.
You're seeing through this hole, through the next hole, and seeing the light at the backboard, or at 17 feet off the water. The Earth is flat. If he's holding it up at 23 feet high and we're seeing the light, well, that's because the Earth's curved. So I should only be able to see it when it's at 17 feet. Okay, go ahead and drive down there, Enrique. You're going to hold the light there. Enrique, how high is your light?
17 feet.
I mean, it's as, we don't see you, Enrique. Lift up your light way above your head. Interesting.
You see, Mr. Campanella has two pretty big YouTube channels, all right? One of them is called Globebusters, which is a Flat Earth podcast. And then he's essentially got a Flat Earth commentary channel called Jaronism, where he makes more weekly Flat Earth content on whatever's going on. We can see on the Jaronism channel, he has a lot of interesting stuff, like more fake space photos, where he calls out NASA for supposedly faking photos of the stars. But one of my personal favorite highlights from his channel is a satirical take on a Billy Joel song, where he basically lists off a bunch of conspiracy theories that he may or may not believe in. And I don't know how much of this he believes in, but a lot of it is very funny. One of the real hits in the song, in my opinion, is towards the beginning. He includes the conspiracy theory, which is the idea that Michelle Obama, being the former first lady and wife of Barack Obama, is a man that a lot of these guys call Big Mike. And I do like the idea of Big Mike. I don't really believe it, but I do like it. I like the idea that Michelle Obama is a guy.
your wife identify.
And he's also done a lot of interviews with people who confirm his worldview to try and bring them on and really bolster the flat earth movement. For example, he brought on a supposed F-16 pilot who's apparently confirmed to him that the earth is in fact flat from his perspective.
So we got a nice glaze of grease running along the lines here and here. Very cute double trin.
And the great thing about Jaron's channel is that he's essentially a light, and his followers are like moths that flock to him, because there's not a lot of mainstream flat earthers out there for people to really congregate around and commune around and kind of bow down to as like their source of truth and light in this world, someone who's speaking their truth. And so Jaron's comment sections are absolutely filled with these guys. If you check the comment sections, they have a lot of unique justifications for why the earth is flat and why they think the way they think. For example, if the earth is flat, then why do we have eclipses? Well, you see, these guys believe in the concept of nodes. The eclipse is a lensing effect on electrical nodes in the sky. When the sun or moon passes through one of these nodes, there is a partial or total eclipse depending on where you are. A total eclipse in one place is a partial eclipse hundreds of miles away. The nodes are in a sequence. There are videos of those nodes being visible during an eclipse. The lunar eclipse is always a selenalion. This means the sun and moon are always out at the same time above the horizon. Well, okay, we've got an explanation there. We've learned about the nodes. Pretty interesting stuff. But what about gravity? If the earth is truly not round, why does it have any gravitational pull in the way that, you know, on any side of the earth that you're on in any place, you're going to drop an object and seemingly basically observe the same gravitational pull? Why is that the case? Well, you see, a helpful commenter also had an explanation for that. It's the law of density. Same reason why a metal ball sinks to the bottom of the sea while a feather does not. Water is denser than a feather, while less dense than a metal ball. You see, this community of people has basically gathered around Jaron, around Jaron, around Big J Man, we call him, all right, in this world. Maybe Warner Brothers did have something to do with it. Hey, if we check your emails, Big J, Mr. J, they call you, is there something going on with Warner Brothers already? Are you being cast in a new movie? I've heard rumors, okay? Let me know. I'm excited. Tell me the lore. But Jaron is a very prominent member of the Flat Earth community. He's got like relatively decent thumbnails and SEO stuff for the kind of stuff he's talking about. And he even starred in the Behind the Curve documentary, which, as I mentioned earlier, set out to document these guys and understand their worldview. He is a speaker for the people. He's like the Martin Luther King of online modern day flat earth. He and pretty much every flat earth content creator often get comments from people who they refer to as globe heads who disagree with their scientific assessment. And this is when we get into the final experiment. Basically, there's this guy named Will Duffy. He's a pastor from a small church in Denver, Colorado, and he saw this one debate called Flat Earth versus Globehead, and he decided that he wanted to try and settle the score forever. He had a revolutionary idea. He would fly out a bunch of flat earthers, and then he would fly out a bunch of globe heads to Antarctica to basically definitively prove whether or not the earth is flat. The final experiment is a way to settle the shape of the earth debate. Both the flat earth side and the globe side agree that whether or not there's a 24-hour sun in Antarctica will confirm if we live on a flat plane or on a globe. A 24-hour sun cannot work on a flat plane in the south, and the sun cannot set on a globe during the southern summer.
One day, I was watching an interview, and that is where I finally got the idea for the final experiment. It was David Weiss. He is best known as Flat Earth Dave. And here's what he said.
One of the arguments that people give is on a flat earth, you can't have a 24-hour sun, a midnight sun in Antarctica. And I totally agree. But there is no midnight sun in Antarctica.
That's it. Antarctica and the 24-hour sun. But most importantly, Dave Weiss made me realize the single most important thing when it comes to the final experiment is that both sides agree. Both sides agree that if there is a 24-hour sun, we live on a globe with Antarctica as an island at the bottom of it.
So it's pretty self-explanatory, as you can see. It's basically what you would expect. But he was going to go all out for this. This was an all-expenses paid trip to prove once and for all that the Earth is round. I'm not really sure where he got all the cash to do this, but it's really funny, so I don't really care. So now that Will had this concept in his mind, he had to do the hardest part, which was actually getting the flat earthers to agree to go. Obviously, it's going to be pretty easy to get globe heads who want to meet some flat earthers and just see what's going on with them, but the flat earthers are very reclusive, they're very conspiratorial, they're not trusting, and so as a result, it's not very surprising that at first, Jaron was very resistant to this idea. Mr. Campanella was kind of scared, to the point that Will was getting desperate to get him to go out there. He even offered him $45,000 specifically for his trip to South America, for lodging, for food, for literally everything. I don't know how 45 grand was going into this, but he offered him that much money.
Jaron has asked me to make a public video stating that I will cover all of his expenses for our trip to Antarctica this December. There's going to be additional expenses like flying to South America and food and lodging in South America before the flight to Antarctica. Jaron thinks that these added expenses could get all the way up to $45,000. I don't think they'll go that high. But yes, if they do go that high, Jaron, I will cover all of your expenses. I believe you're in California, and so you probably don't have any winter clothing. That will be required as well. So all expenses will be covered, even if it goes all the way up to $45,000.
And despite saying that he would match that, Jaron was still very resistant to the idea and said in an interview that he would need a buddy to go along with him. Will immediately responded and was like, okay, you can bring your buddy. I'll pay for your buddy. And Jaron seemed pretty speechless at that.
But I wouldn't accept it yet because of the fact that I would want another person to go. I don't want to stay in a tent with Dave McKeegan. That sounds like a nightmare. If there was another flat earther that you were to select, that you were to send both of us down there, and then we could request to stay in the same tent. So now I'm staying in the same tent as this flat earther.
But I'm ready to commit to pay for you and one other person.
You ready to commit?
One other flat earther.
And all expenses for both?
That's right.
Okay.
Now, at this point, despite some hesitancy, he did eventually agree, along with 2 other flat earthers. So at this point, you've got 3 people going out there. Say what you will about them, but at the very least, these dudes were so strong in their convictions that they're willing to put their entire lives and career on the line for something that they seem to fully believe in and would be fruitless for them anyway. But obviously, once they all got there, they all recorded in 4K how the 24-hour sun doesn't actually set where they were, and Jaron then had to go on camera and admit that he had been wrong all along.
All right, guys. Sometimes you are wrong in life, and I thought that there was no 24-hour sun. In fact, I was pretty sure of it. But I respect Will Duffy for being a stand-up guy, at least in the way that he kept saying it was true. I kept saying it wasn't. He said, "Do you want to go? I'll take you," and brought me here. And it's a fact. The sun does circle you in the south. So what does that mean? You guys are gonna have to figure that out yourself. Don't listen to my beliefs or my opinion. It shouldn't matter to you. But at least you should be able to accept that the sun does exactly what these guys said as far as circles the southern continent. So that's about it. I realize that I'll be called a shill for just saying that. And you know what? If you're a shill for being honest, so be it.
Notice how he still doesn't say, okay, the earth is round, right? Notice how he doesn't do that. He's kind of in the process of accepting it, but he hasn't quite gotten there. And in a way, you know what? I kind of feel bad for him because, I mean, as funny as it is, like, imagine dedicating an entire portion of your life, your career, your beliefs to an idea that you then have to admit on camera you were wrong about the entire time. It can't be that fun. It can't feel that good. Even if what he believes is that the earth is flat. Like, what do you even do when you get home at this point? How do you go home and sleep at night? But you know what? It is nice to see that Jaron still had the balls to kind of admit here that, you know, he was wrong. There is a 24-hour sun. It does happen. But the same could not be said about other flat earthers that were not there, okay? They didn't really trust his interpretation. Because afterwards, they would all hop onto a Discord call and they would say that this is all a green screen, that Jaron has been compromised, okay? It's all over. The deep state finally got him. He is being drugged. Maybe he's being held captive. Maybe he's being offered a new girlfriend by the government. But whatever the case, he's compromised. And he has decided to willfully lie about what's happening here and say that there is a 24-hour sun when in fact there is not.
Will Duffy for being a stand-up guy.
Oh, Will Duffy's a stand-up guy. That's what I wanted to know.
Wow, that's very telling.
And this kind of leads us into the major problem with flat Earth, right? Even if you convince one particular guy of him being wrong, there's still a ton of others out there who are going to believe what they believe, and they can make up whatever justification they want. They can deny science, they can create their own scientific process, they can just pull it out of their ass, and you can't really argue with them. It's almost fruitless to debate these guys because even if you convince one guy and you show that that guy was convinced, his buddies will then just say he's in a magical trance or that he's sold out, that there's a green screen behind him. They'll never actually believe the truth. There's this quote that always flies around whenever you discuss flat Earth in comment sections across all of YouTube, and the quote is essentially, it's very hard to win an argument against a smart person, but it is impossible to win an argument with a stupid person. And that's really the situation that you're in with flat Earth. You're not going to be able to convince them. You can show them whatever you want, they will just say it's fake. They have their own reality. When it's all said and done, people will just believe what they want to believe. They'll hear what they want to hear. The Antarctica trip probably will sway a few people's opinions on the matter, but I would bet that a majority of the people that are fully enraptured, that are fully brought into the flat Earth trenches, will find some method of explaining this away. It honestly just seems like finding a community of people that they can hang out with or feel alive with once in a while once they have a midlife crisis. You know, it kind of feels good to be like, I'm discovering the truth of the Earth, the truth that the Earth is totally flat, and then they'll have their own little version of beliefs and they can talk to other people online about it. Like, it's kind of just just a bunch of dudes hanging out, finding a sense of belonging. You know, some people have Marvel movies, okay? Some people have Dungeons and Dragons. Some people have Apex Legends or Fortnite. Let's be honest, nobody has Apex Legends, but everybody's got to have their thing. And for these guys, it is the idea that the Earth is flat. It's fun. I don't really think it's a coincidence that a majority of these flat earthers are guys who are like 50 plus, and they're generally from a pretty rural area. A lot of these guys probably don't have that many friends, and they just want some dudes they can chill with and discuss the many, you know, qualms of the intergalactic police force and the ice wall. And it's not really that different from guys who go to these like nerdy, hobby-centric conventions at the end of the day. It's just that unlike nerds, these guys think that what they're talking about is real, which is honestly probably more fun. Like if I thought that Batman was real, I think that my life would be better. So I might just start believing it. But anyway, that's about it. Thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed. I hope you guys are enjoying Christmas. I just realized my tree has been off this entire time. Merry Christmas! And I'll see you all in the next video where I, we have to find out next time. Anyway, bye.